Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of AstroTarot Deep Dive. I'm Millie Murillo. I'm here with Susheela Kundargi, and we're really excited to talk about July 2023. This 2023 has been a year of a few pivotal months. March was one of them. And I think that July is another pivotal month. We have things shifting and changing that mark the course to another route, our attention is being routed in another direction, in another part of our lives. And so we have significant cycles ending and beginning. And that, I think, is going to manifest and reflect itself mostly in relationships. Yeah.
It is. I've got you don't know the cards that I've got here, but there's a lot of passion, there's a lot of emotion, but not like out of control emotion, but it's strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about how we're walking into July. And this is important because this energy that I'm going to talk about in a second repeats itself throughout the month of July. And there's a purpose for that. But we have started feeling it, especially the last week of June. And that is the energy of planets in Leo creating a square or a 90-degree angle to Uranus and Taurus. What we're experiencing the last week of June leading on to July 1st, and as we're recording this video, is Mars in Leo creating a square to Uranus and Taurus. And it's really interesting because without knowing it, one of the themes that came up for Susheela and I throughout our week with our clients is this manifestation of physical exhaustion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, this probably happens to you week in, week out, where you notice a theme. You notice a theme that unfolds with multiple people. To me, this feels like what I've noticed is a few things. One is how there is this part of us that is still trying to will ourselves into doing things, into being productive, past this point of exhaustion that our body is clearly saying, you can't do much from here. I mean, people are sick. So the people that I've spoken to have been sick. They're experiencing some kind of illness, something that is taking them to bed, something that's saying you need to rest, you need to nap. And still this narrative around, but I have things to do, but I have things to finish. And it's like, that's not going to happen. I think that in itself is a manifestation of what the cosmos, what spirit is telling us about our relationship to productivity, our relationship to why we do the things we do in the way we do them. Mars in Leo is expression in action. It can be very, very creative energy. I want to show the world. I want to show off. Now, that can be from a space of just being obnoxious, or I want to show off my talents. I want to show what I have to offer, right? But that square to Uranus and Taurus, it's a bit of an impediment. Uranus and Taurus at that square is a bit of a block. And so an energy like Mars in Leo doesn't want to stop. It just wants to keep going. So as it's attempting to push through that Uranus energy, it's exerting more energy and therefore becoming really tired. And so I think that that's how it's manifesting itself in our reality. And I think that's important to take note of.
Yeah, what I've noticed is, we're in this Western world, this idea of productivity is that we are physically doing something. We are physically going and doing and dropping off and picking up and, to-do lists and we are really actively doing something. I think what we fail to realize is that there's a lot of other stuff going on energetically, and anybody who's been working on themselves or who's been asking for things, or whether they're consciously manifesting things or they're just sort of surfing along, our bodies, our cells, our entire spiritual, electromagnetic, it's just all of that stuff is going and it's working and it's doing.
Right.
And we are not really aware that all of that's going on. And it's like amplified because we have asked for things, we have purged and we have surrendered and we've like lined stuff up and we dove in and had those leaps of faith and all those things that we were trying to do all these months and months and months. But now it's like it's in the body. The body's carrying over. It's in our sleep. We're not focused on it during the day. We go to bed and it's still going, going, going. It's processing like that. We talk about processing our emotions or processing the things that happen to us, but it's physically demanding as well. Like I think about my dog who's husky, and people say, oh, you have to run her, and get her all tired out. It's like, no, she could run. I mean, she's a little overweight and fat right now, but she's out of shape. So she can't really run. But typically what tires her out is like mental exercises. Do that for 10 to 20 minutes and she's just out.
Right.
But she could run when she's in her peak physical shape. She can run and run and run. It's not tiring at all. And so I think that's like where we are collectively. There's that other part. There's that like mental fatigue that permeates our entire being. Our bodies, our minds, our souls are exhausted because we need to process a lot of stuff that has happened.
Yeah. And I think that June and the beginning of July just happened to be those months where the universe decided this is where you're going to be forced to take a rest, on top of a lot of things coming up.
So a lot of things that the universe says,
yeah,
this, that's in, that's out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's what brings us into July. So we begin on July 1st with a lot of things happening at once. And mind you, you probably noticed, I'm sure, Susheela, that Mercury is so active all month long. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind. Mercury, the planet of communication, cognitive thought, our mind running. But more importantly, Mercury is the planet that represents how we perceive ourselves and therefore how we perceive the world. So when Mercury is activated, or when Mercury is constantly active, it tends to manifest in a lot of things having to be done, errands, tasks, our attention and being split in several different directions. So that can add to this essence or this energy of tiredness and exhaustion. But when Mercury is also constantly activated, to me, that feels like the needing to pay attention to, what am I paying attention to? How is how I perceive the world being shaped right now? Am I present enough for that, or am I just too dispersed? Is my attention too dispersed? And I think that that's something to watch out for the month of July, because on July 1st, it starts off almost immediately. Mercury actually has really beautiful connections on July 1st. There's a Sun-Mercury conjunction in the sign of Cancer. This is called a superior conjunction. Mercury is direct. When Mercury is retrograde, it has an inferior conjunction to the Sun during its retrograde period that happened back in May when Mercury was retrograde in Taurus. Now, finally, the Sun and Mercury meet again in Cancer, and this is the recognition of, this is what helps me feel safe. This is what feels like home. Now, at the same time, the Sun in Cancer is creating a trine to Saturn retrograde in Pisces. The same sun in Cancer is creating a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus, and Mercury is doing the same thing. Mercury is creating a sextile to Jupiter in Taurus and a trine to Saturn in Pisces. Sun in Cancer, or Cancer energy, this is what helps me feel safe. Taurus energy is also about safety, but it's more about material safety rather than emotional safety. And Saturn in Pisces is about creating a solid foundation that is aligned with the soul, Pisces energy. But Saturn is retrograde. So there's a reconsideration right now that's happening, not so subtly, about what used to make me feel safe is not really the same thing anymore. And I think that what's happening is that there's a transition happening where there's an acceptance of that. I used to feel emotionally safe in these circumstances and these types of relationships, and I don't anymore. Having all of the material stuff used to make me feel safe. And now I understand that it's more about less is more, and that helps me feel safe. And how the foundations in our lives, Saturn and Pisces, are going to begin to reflect how our soul is, how we are feeling safe in this space. Yeah.
Well, one thing to pay attention to in this, and always, the repeating numbers, or numbers in escalation, or numbers that are descending. So right out of the gate, we've got a lot of fire, actually. So we've got these 5 aspects on one day, and we have 2 2s, and we have a 2 to a 1, an ace, 2 to an ace in the same suit. And then we have another 2, and we have another 2 that's in the major arcana. So let's look at this. And I'm using 2 different decks, as I mentioned to Millie offline, because there's so many things going on. I thought, just in case, so we don't run out of anything. And of course, there are no repeats, but we get to look at 2 pretty decks. So we go from this 2 of Wands to an Ace of Wands. So that means backwards. That is like a retrograde. Then we have the High Priestess, which is a number 2, major arcana, right in the middle. And then we have the 2 of Earth, which is the 2 of Pentacles. And then we get the Queen of Fire, which is the Queen of Wands. So sandwiching that energy of that day, we have the Queen of Fire, and then we go from a 2 to a 1. So that 2 of Wands is this sort of oscillating between 2 options. I need to make a plan. I don't know what plan. I don't know really anything other than I know I need to make a plan. The Queen of Wands is this imaginative, creative, spontaneous, vibrant. The Queen of Wands walks into a room and everybody notices, even if they're not looking, that there's an energy that comes in. So that, I need to make a plan feeling moves backwards into the Ace of Wands, which is that first spark of spontaneity. So it's almost like postpone making the plan, or get out of that planning. I need to plan, I need to do, I need to figure, and just go back to the root of what's the idea, what's the spark, where's my creativity, where's my passion, all that kind of stuff. And then this is weird too, because we have the major number 2, and then the 2 of discs or pentacles, where it's limited also. There's like a juggling of 2 obstacles, waffling, maybe limited resources or limited funds, or there's this, I don't want to say that it's blocked, because it's not blocked. It's just blocked in a way that we're imagining it. If you come back to source, it's like, it's actually not blocked. It's like that old analogy of the fly persisting and trying to get through that window, and it will
Right.
never get through the window, and then steps back and goes, oh, there's a giant doors that are open here. So parts are hidden, and it's going back to that creative, intuitive place, that
Mhm.
source place, and sort of reimagining what we thought, what we felt, what we thought we wanted, what we, it's like, yes, you will make a plan, but maybe the plan that you thought you had to make is not the plan you should be making. So
Yeah.
that's what that little story is about.
It, that feels so, that feels so aligned, because again, that Mars and Leo square Uranus, it's Mars and Leo wants to act and express, and there's something saying not so fast, literally not so fast. And this combination of Cancer Taurus, both Cancer Taurus are signs really geared towards a sense of safety, just a different type of safety.
Mhm.
And sometimes planning life a certain way gives us a sense of safety, but it comes from that space of being constantly productive. And I think that when we come from that space, there is no trust. We feel that we have to do more than we really need to do. You know, that,
Seeking validation.
right? Then, landing in a space of exhaustion and absolute burnout. Um, Interesting. So then we move to July 2nd, and we have Venus and Leo creating a square to Uranus and Taurus. This is something that you're going to want to mark on your calendars, July 2nd, August 9th, and September 29th, because Venus and Leo is going to square Uranus and Taurus those 3 dates. What that tells you is that this story is unfolding. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. The beginning is July 2nd, the middle is August 9th, the end is September 29th. Venus and Leo is the relationship to me. What is our relationship to love? What is our relationship to relationships? What is our relationship to heart? And square Uranus and Taurus is having to do relationships differently in accordance to our value system now, because
Mm.
Taurus has so much to do with value. And over the last year and a half, value, a sense of value or sense of worth, our value system has shifted significantly. This can also manifest in you have some kind of a spat with someone. This is just the beginning. I don't think that this translates into a breakup, but I think that it translates into finally accepting a truth about a relationship, about where a relationship really is,
Mm.
and it taking till September 29th, because Venus is going to retrograde, for you to really say, oh, this doesn't align, or this does align. We just have to, our dynamic just has to change, or there's a clarity, there's a, I don't know, there's a refining, I think, of relationships.
Yeah, taking inventory of what is actually there, what, as opposed to some fantasy, or maybe even where it was at some point. It's
Right.
not there now.
Mhm.
So we have the Four of Pentacles, and this is in the Tarot of Mystical Moments. It's often the miser, they call this card, because it's somebody who's holding very tightly onto their possessions.
Mhm.
But it's also, because it's a four is very balanced energy, and it's foundational energy. So those four pentacles it's actually a really welcome sign if you remember not to be miserly.
Mm.
So it's practical. It's a sign that in the future, this can really blossom, whether it's your finances or your relationships or romance or whatever. But there's that practical aspect of, if I hold on to this too tightly, no matter what it is,
Mhm.
this is this feeling of fear or loss or selfishness or, all those things that can work its way down. On the positive side, if I'm still practical and, taking inventory, whether it's of my finances or my relationships or who's
Mhm.
doing what, or, is it very unbalanced? Is something unbalanced? Am I doing way more than the other person? Or we're not calculating like, I love you 10 hearts and you're only loving me 2 hearts.
Right.
It's not in that way, but it's yes, things might be unbalanced and one person may be doing everything all the time.
Mhm.
So if we pay attention to that and let it expand and grow or talk about it or reassess it, it can blossom into something phenomenal. The
Mhm.
same thing with our wealth. It is not talking about spending everything and saying, oh, well, whatever, the universe is going to fill it up because I believe. So I'm going to gamble and I'm going to spend and I'm going to buy. It's not that. It's the not holding on to everything and save for a rainy day. It's okay, save something for a rainy day, but then also say, hey, this can grow and that can grow. And I should know that I can spend a little in order to get something back.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought in the theme of finances, because anytime that we have anything with Venus and Taurus being involved, it has so much to do with finances and money. And so, I mean, look, this can also, these 3 dates, July 2nd, August 9th, September 29th, can also be a time in which you come to um, a great level of honesty of what your relationship to your finances are, because Uranus will always represent unexpected, the
Mm,
unexpected. So this can either be, it manifests in spending money and something that you didn't expect to spend money in, or um not not having a lot of forethought and just being very uh just spending your money on a whim.
yeah,
Yeah,
impulsive.
impulsivity, right, right. So being mindful of that. July 3rd, we have the full moon in Capricorn at 11 degrees Capricorn. This is actually a this is actually a really nice full moon. It's a full moon that creates a trine to Jupiter and Taurus and a sextile to Saturn retrograde in Pisces. This is beautiful. Um, the full moon in Capricorn, it's almost like a check-in point. What have you manifested thus far? Your physical manifestations, what are they, what do they look like? So for instance, what is your money situation? Are you happy with it, or are there things that you need to take greater responsibility for and perhaps approach with a little bit more maturity and forethought? The trine to Jupiter in Taurus is that is what lets you know that if you do take responsibility and you view things from a realistic space, that you're supported. Or let's say that you want to make an investment, but that you don't have all of the money right now, right?
Mhm.
Jupiter and Taurus lets you know, well, research enough, dig enough, look enough, take your time, you'll find something. Jupiter and Taurus has a little bit of this quality of luck with money, but I think that you meet your luck if what you're attempting to align with is genuine.
Mm,
The sextile to Saturn in Pisces is, again, just to stay with the example of money. Okay, my relationship with money is not so great right now. This is compassionate accountability. This is kind of, okay, let me make a payment plan to pay that credit card off, and it actually being, something that they allow you to do. Um, there's this sense of, if you are willing to take responsibility for where you are now, you are guided and supported in ways that you may not realize. Full moon in Capricorn, um, this is a full moon to a new moon in Capricorn that we had earlier in the year. What's manifesting itself, and how does your material life reflect all of the work that you've done. It doesn't strike me as a heavy full moon. I think it's actually really lovely.
It is good. And the theme for that day is the number 3. It falls on a 3. We have a 3.
Mhm.
We're talking about things being trined,
Mhm.
3s and 6s and 9s. So it the 3 of Pentacles is a card of collaboration.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
yes, you can collaborate with somebody who has exactly what you have, as much as anybody can, and that will grow exponentially. But it's maybe preferable to collaborate with people who don't have exactly what you have, thereby creating like a symbiotic relationship.
Mhm.
Okay, I am not so good with money, but I'm really good at this other thing. So I can go out and get somebody who can help me manage my money better. They're doing something else over there. I can connect them to that person.
Right.
Or in a relationship, friendships, work environments, I'm trying to solve a problem. My skill set can handle 60% of it, but I need somebody to handle the other. So it's collaborative in a very practical sense.
Mhm.
It's not lofty, it's not grandiose. It's like, here's what I have, here's what I don't have. I'm not going to keep cracking my head open over this thing that isn't me. I don't like it. I can't do it. Don't want to do it.
Mhm.
How can I make this beneficial to more people? So there's this exponential feeling in that collaboration too, in that the sum of the parts creates something far greater than anything on its own.
Right. Right. Yeah. It feels like very grounded support in there.
Hmm.
Yeah. On July 6th, we have Mercury and Cancer square Chiron in Aries. This is a day where you'll want to be mindful of of any projection, either from you to another, from another to you. Mercury in Cancer is a bit of melancholy, remembering the past, definitely speaking from the heart, carrying your heart on your sleeve. And the square to Chiron in Aries can be saying mean things that you can't take back, really just hurtful things that in true Cancer fashion have more to do with you. If you're the one, saying these mean things, have more to do with you than with the other person, and vice versa, right? So understanding that if you are on the receiving end of this, Mercury in Cancer square Chiron in Aries is very reactive energy. And
Mm.
it's the saying the thing that someone knows about you and just hits that chord, hits that point, that pain point. Um, if you're the one, who does this, ask yourself, what is it that you're carrying around? What's happening? Who hurt you? Because this
Yeah.
is it's a temporary aspect, and because it's temporary, it can happen very quickly.
Hmm. We have a funny card for that day. We have the Magician, the
Mm,
goose that laid the golden egg. Be careful what you ask for, or be careful what you curse.
right.
You know, the manifesting energies are so strong that if you just speak without thinking and be like, I wish whatever,
Hmm.
oh, especially with emotion behind it,
Hmm.
without overthinking it,
Hmm.
definitely underthinking, stuff can happen.
Yeah.
You won't be able to take it back so easily. You won't be able to fix it so easily. You'll be like, never say things like, oh, I wish something would just happen to so and so so that they could get a clue. You don't want to do that,
Hmm.
especially on that day. But
Hmm.
in the positive sense, if you do sit and focus for a moment and you try and harness those magician-like abilities, you probably can do something really spectacular that
Right.
day.
Yeah, because I think that on the other side of that is a significant breakthrough. Not through the easiest conversation, probably through a difficult conversation with yourself or another, or something comes up in therapy, for instance. Um, but it can represent a breakthrough because
Mhm.
squares represent breakthroughs. They're catalysts for change. Um, but that would require presence. And so here's the thing. On July 7th, Mercury in Cancer then creates a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. So the day before, it had a square to fire energy, Chiron in Aries. And the following day, it has a sextile to Uranus and Taurus.
Mm.
That can feel like if you do say the thing and you regret it, you're going to regret it the next day. And you're going to say, why did I say that? The sextile to Uranus and Taurus is really looking at things from a different perspective in a much more grounded way, in a much more Taurus way. Um, let's say that it's more on the positive end. With on July 6th, you had a breakthrough. There's a hard truth to accept. There's nothing light about that aspect. There's
Mhm.
harshness in some way. But then July 7th is, wow, I'm really glad that I can accept the truth of my relationship with my mother is never going to change. And there's something grounding, there's something about accepting that truth. I can then hold it differently. So
Mhm.
there is a settling of it, but depending on where you're at and how you're holding the energy.
Yeah, so we've got the King of Wands on that day.
Mhm.
The King of Wands likes things done their way,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Um, it is passionate, fiery energy, but sometimes, yeah, let's say you didn't stick your foot in your mouth and you had self-control and you were like, no, I'm actually going to use my powers for good instead of evil and manifest something fantastic. It's quick energy. So you are able to see results, good or bad, pretty immediately, like instant karma. So,
Mhm.
in that positive sense, the King of Wands is like, huh, I did that. I
Right.
did that. I
Right.
did it. And then the other side, it's like, oh my God, I did that.
Right.
Oh, I
Right.
can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
So there you go. Caution, caution.
Right. July 7th, look, it's also a really great day. Anytime that Mercury and Uranus meet, especially in a sextile or a trine, really great day for brainstorming, for meeting with collaborators, because it's an exchange of ideas. It's an exchange of ideas. And so ideas, Mercury and thinking outside the box, or somebody brings an element that you don't bring is all Uranus energy. So July 7th is a really, really great day for that. That then takes us to July 9th, in which Mercury, again in Cancer, now creates a trine to Neptune and Pisces. This is an unwinding, this is disconnecting, potential dissociating, potential denial. So great energy for, I don't know, taking the day off, going, doing a meditation. Great energy if you work with a facilitator and they guide you through a meditation to see what's really happening inside. Uh, it's a great day to disconnect, but being mindful of how you're disconnecting. I don't think that scrolling through your phone all day is really disconnecting. I think it's more of if you go to the park and sit under a
Distracting.
tree, right? If you go to the beach and just kind of listen to the ocean, all that water energy, being near water that day can be very calming to the thoughts, especially because the previous couple of days, Mercury is so active. You're speaking, you're thinking, you're exchanging ideas. Hopefully you're not saying mean things to another person. So there's a lot.
Mm.
July 9th is a really beautiful day to disconnect from the world, but really connect with yourself.
Yeah. So we have an amazing card. I'm going to cover up the words and just show you the energy.
Ah, lovely. Yes. Yes.
So we've got this red, lamp kind of hovering over her. And the birds that are there, that's communication. One is leaving, one is resting.
Mm,
Sort of floating in this like airy, watery, delightful, summery, springy kind of place.
yeah.
It is temperance.
Oh, wow.
Temperance. Yeah.
Mhm,
So trying to find balance and
mhm,
patience and coming back into balance. If you're confused, then don't make a decision.
mhm, mhm.
Take some time out. Rest. If you're bogged down, if your brain is overworked, stop.
Right.
Sit on a little Miss Muffet on her tuffet with her birds and rose petals. I don't know, whatever she's doing. It's like just let some stuff be, let something leave, let something come to you. Like that's
Mhm,
the energy of that day.
right. And again, the next day, July 10th, Mercury in Cancer, creates an opposition to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. And on the same day, Mars enters Virgo, which is a sign naturally ruled by Mercury. So, Mercury in opposition to Pluto, uh, on the one hand, it can, if you're focused, let's say that you took the previous day to just kind of connect with yourself and your creativity is revitalized. Mercury in opposition to Pluto is kind of being focused, doing research, um, just keeping your eye on the prize, but whatever your prize is, really intentional focus and effort onto something that is significant to you. Let's say that that's not where you're at, right? And all of those days, all of that movement in Mercury, you haven't been able to be present, you haven't able to pause. Mercury opposition to Pluto can mean, mm, again, not conversations, but arguments, power struggles a little bit, kind of one-upping one another. I can picture two people just yelling at each other,
Mhm.
not the and the other trying to yell louder at the other. Um, and the thing is that with Mars entering Virgo, because Virgo is ruled by Mercury, this can be just spewing just a lot of nonsense nonstop and harsh criticism. Mars enters Virgo and it remains there till August 27th. Or on the flip side, Mars in Virgo saying, if you are focused, if you did take a moment to recollect, saying, somewhat creating a little bit of a strategy of, I'm going to take action in this way. And in true Virgo fashion, saying, kind of doing a to do list and saying, these are the things that I'm going to get done. But allowing that to do list, those actions to be aligned with what really matters to you and not overwhelming yourself with things to do.
So numbers again,
Mhm,
super interesting. So on the third, we had a 3, and we had a 2 going back to a 1, wands or fire. So it went 2, 1. We had a 3 on the third. We have a 10 on the 10th, Wheel of Fortune,
mhm,
number 10, and we
mhm,
have the 3 of Wands. So now we're moving ahead again. We're
mhm,
moving forward again. Little increments, and it's a solo trip. This is a solo trip
mhm.
for things to be pleasant and conducive and to make use of the very fortunate aspects.
Yeah.
We had that restful day the day before. Now we're moving into this very fortunate circumstance, solo trip, the next step in the plan.
Mhm,
Keep
mhm,
all the other people out of the way. I don't want to hear the opinions or the judgments or the, well, you know what you should do. No,
Right.
nobody asked.
Right.
And, just sail forward, set your sights and just kind of float a little bit forward. It's very positive energy, I think, because it's the Three of Wands. That's all about inspiration. It's all about the things that fuel you, your life purpose, all of that. And I know we have North Node stuff later in the month, so that kind of gets, hit up again there. But that day, I think, actually those 2 days, it's very solid. If you want to have real peace of mind, stay away from people.
That's a good point. Yeah. That's such a good point.
And go, I can't hear you. Yeah, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's such a good point. July 10th, July 9th and 10th. Yeah. That then takes us to July 11th. Mercury enters Leo, remains there till July 28th. So it goes through Leo very quickly. And the first thing that Mercury in Leo does is create a square, or conform a T-square, to the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio. The North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio are on their way out of Taurus and Scorpio. And so Mercury in Leo is very, again, creative energy. Is what if Mercury represents how we think, and what we think of ourselves, and Leo is the sign ruled by the sun representing our identity. This is, what do I think of myself now? And that tension that creates through the North Node in Taurus and the South Node in Scorpio is really a big question of, who am I now? Because the nodes are exiting those signs after having been there a year and a half, after having been there since January 2022. Who am I now? What is my identity? What do I identify as now? And think about, to me, this feels like a question as to what do I identify as, in terms of, for instance, pronouns, right? That has been such a big thing, depending on the change in value system and how you see yourself and what you've released about yourself, especially with that South Node in Scorpio. That's just an example, but this is a significant day. So think about the previous days, Mercury doing a lot of things. This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm expressing. This is what I'm writing about, creating, all the things. And come July 11th, there's a landing of something of, oh, this is who I am now. I think that's an important day. One to really be observant of what comes up for you individually.
So I've got the Eight of Swords, and coincidentally, that's the card for this week that we're currently in, June 29th onward. It's about the blocks and the limiting beliefs, because swords and the air sign, it's all about our cognitive ability. It's about thinking. It's our intellect. It's not about the inspiration. It is about communication, but it's all like up in here. It's not about the heart. It's like,
Right.
It's like Spock trying to be logical.
Right.
But Spock doesn't overthink, because when you get into that place of overthinking, it's emotion driven again. Right. There's that anxiety factor. So if we kept going with this, we end up in the Nine of Swords, which is like so much anxiety. You wake up in the middle of the night, it's like, just bogged down by thoughts or worry or whatever. So this is just to say, look, I've been doing all these things. It feels good. I think I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I have to get rid of this, or I have to start doing that. But my identity says that I can't do this because
Right.
it's probably not true,
Right.
is what it
Right.
is. This is a construct.
Hmm.
It's reality if you adhere to it.
Right. Right. And don't forget that Venus will begin its retrograde cycle later in the month. So, Venus, the planet of relationships, is going to redefine the relationship that we have with our ego and our identity, Leo. I mean, that is one of the biggest components of that Venus retrograde in Leo. The relationship to ourselves and to who we are now and to who we are willing to accept ourselves to be now. And so, yeah, that's that. I think it's an active theme all month, but it gets stronger as the month goes on.
It's not actually, it reminds me of, the soul incarnating as different people or different
Mm,
beings. The
yeah.
soul is the soul,
Hmm.
but if I was a horse,
Hmm.
how I spend my day and what I do and everything is going to be very different than if I'm me, for the
Right.
most part anyway. There'll be far less computer work, but maybe my thoughts are the same, but who I interact with, how I interact with them, how they see me, how they perceive me,
Hmm.
what they do with me is going to be really different. So it's like we essentially are the same, but there's that shift in how we're defining ourselves. So of course we're going to have different relationships
Yep.
suddenly.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a great segue to July 12th, in which the sun in Cancer then creates a square to Chiron in Aries. So remember, Mercury did that on July 6th, and that's where we want to be mindful of saying mean things or knowing that we might be on the receiving end of someone saying mean things to us. And then once we get to July 12th, which is about a week later, the sun in Cancer square Chiron in Aries, while Mercury represents the communication of something. The sun in Cancer is my identity feels safe here. My identity, the sun, feels safe, Cancer, here, and what I know. And the square to Chiron in Aries can be the pain of realizing that what used to make you feel safe no longer is. And to your point, that can mean relationships. It has so much to do with relationships.
Yeah.
Relationships will shift. Who you feel safe around will shift. And again, that's I use the word safe because that sense of safety, the ability to be yourself and shine fully, not have to play small around certain people because of all of this Leo energy, Venus and Leo,
Yeah.
that's going to play such a big role.
And it's interesting. So we have 0 here, the
Hmm.
Fool. And in this deck, as I mentioned, I'm oscillating between these 2 decks. And in this deck, it's a very unique card because usually somebody is at the edge of something, like jumping off a cliff or taking a leap, or and here we have this youthful, angelic figure sort of frolicking around like this magical garden or something with a little tiny trumpet. It's like announcing something.
Hmm.
It's the reset button. We get to begin anew. And in this particular case, it's not a leap. It's not a leap of faith. It's like you wake up and you shout out.
Right.
Hopefully, you know how to play that instrument because it can be horrible. But it is, maybe that's the leap, play the trumpet no matter how bad it sounds. I don't know, but it's it's the reset. You get to start over.
Yeah.
It's fresh and playful and innocent and all those things.
reset in relationships, again, it's a big theme. And here's the thing. And here's, I want to make clear that it doesn't mean that all relationships are going to end. What is going to end is the current dynamic from which they're functioning from.
Mhm.
And that may manifest in the rupture of some relationships, or it can manifest in a really beautiful transformation in a current relationship. You may recover a dynamic of passion. Leo is the sign of
Yeah.
passion, right? A dynamic of creativity. This is what brought us alive. If you collaborate with someone, it can surge different levels of creativity. So I want to make that clear because a lot of
Yeah.
times we tend to lean into fear.
There's a lot of passion
Yeah.
with all of the cards this month. And the way I have them laid out, it's interesting because everything to the left of me has a lot of red in it, and everything to the right of me has a lot of blue and white in
Mm,
it, with a
mhm,
little at the very end, a little flecks of red. But when we think back again to those wands, and the two to the one is that burst of inspiration, the burst of passion. It's
mhm,
the wand. I mean, it's a phallic symbol. It's like
mm.
this creative force, life force, and then we're moving forward again. So it's like we go back. So, oh, I need to make a decision because something doesn't feel right. There's a block. There's a mental block. There's something. There's something that no longer fits with this energy anymore, or this energy no longer fits with something else.
Right.
So we move back a little bit, we kind of recalibrate, we move forward, stuff gets thrown away, even if we're not doing it voluntarily, it's taken away or it's moved or removed or whatever.
Mhm.
And then it gives us that chance. So it's like there is a lot of positive stuff in relationships
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, we don't need to do this way anymore. We can do that
Mhm,
instead.
mhm.
And it's quite likely that because of all that collaborative energy, it's quite likely that the partners will be on board with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. So on July 14th, the same sun in Cancer then creates a sextile to Uranus and Taurus. The sun is doing the same thing that Mercury did earlier in the month. Again, the sun in Cancer is saying this is how my identity used to feel safe, particularly in relationships or in certain places or in certain environments. The previous day, the square to Chiron is the pain that comes with realizing that's no longer it. But on July 14th, the sextile to Uranus and Taurus is saying, if you break this pattern of these types of relationships, for instance, or putting yourself in environments in which you are not appreciated because that's not where you belong. Because whenever you belong somewhere, you will be appreciated simply for being who you are. The sun in Cancer sextile Uranus and Taurus is saying, this is your new sense of safety. Remember, Cancer and Taurus, two signs of the zodiac that are concerned with a sense of safety. Taurus is much more material safety, physical safety, Cancer, emotional safety. So if you dare to take the leap that Uranus is inviting you to take and cut cords with certain dynamics, you will be held and sustained, and you will find where you have belonged all along. I do believe that it is that significant and transformative.
Mhm. We have the 10 of Wands, fire again. It is, nines are the end, and then we get a one and a zero. It's the end, end, end before the reset.
Mhm,
So the exhaustion factor or the saturation point. I cannot tolerate this any longer.
mhm,
Wait, you don't have to. We just
mhm,
needed you to say that.
mhm. Yeah,
That's it. The end before all the good stuff.
yeah. On July 17th, we have a new moon in Cancer at 24 degrees Cancer. It's a new moon that I feel will feel like a full moon, because it has an opposition to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn at 29 degrees and a sextile to Neptune in Pisces at 27 degrees. It's important to remember that when the signs are in the latter degrees of the zodiac signs, they tend to represent an ending, a maturation, an expiration sometimes. It's a new moon in Cancer. Remember, Cancer, the whole month has represented the reconsideration of what has felt like home or safety. The opposition to Pluto in Capricorn, to me, feels like something is inevitably coming to an end. And the sextile to Neptune and Pisces, honestly, in the best way, feels like a death. Neptune in Pisces is the energy of the ethereal, of the other side, of the understanding that Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Things need to come to an end. Both Pluto and Neptune are planets that whose energy we have absolutely no control over. Both in their respective signs represent endings. So this new moon in Cancer, it feels like the beginning of redefining a sense of safety, a sense of home, a sense of chosen family, the dynamic with our family. So I think that it's going to be actually a pretty emotional new moon. It is a new beginning that comes with an inevitable ending. And I don't think we're going to see the ending right away. The ending still remains to be seen. But remember, this is an opening of a 6-month window, which will fully unfold in January when we have a full moon in Cancer.
Mm. So this is really cool. You talk about things culminating and things in the last degrees of a sign. When we're in each suit in the tarot, we go ace up to 10, and then we have a page. We get into the court cards, the page, the knight, the king, and the queen. And we've had all this fire. Now, on that day, I have 3 cards, and none of them are fire. And they're all the people, they're all the court cards. So it's really interesting how the King of Cups is representing this new moon. That is the Cancer sign.
Oh,
He is
wow.
actually
Yeah.
Cancer.
Wow.
And then between them, I'm going to hold them up for you this way. Okay, so we have a king of water, king of cups. Then we have the knight of pentacles. And then we have the queen of swords. And if you look at the way they're going, they're all facing one direction. They're all facing the future, the direction that we're going.
Right.
And so it starts with the new moon, and it
Yeah.
goes to this very slow and steady pace, this reliable, honest, loyal, I'm taking my time, but I got your back. We're going, we're moving, we're still happening. It's there, it's real, it's tangible. I will
Right.
never waver. Up to the queen here, who has her sights. She's looking big picture view. She's got her little telescope up there. She's floating on the world. She's positioned herself in such a way that she can see the big picture, the far goals, where am I going to be? And she's also, she's a very good communicator. She is very sharp. She might have a very sharp tongue. She can be witty. She can appear to be harsh because she has a zero tolerance for BS.
Yeah.
So when you have these 3 showing up together, it's you talk about family or family structure or anything that resembles a family structure. That's what we have. It's like, what are we aligning ourselves to? Who are we forming partnerships with in whatever, not just romantic sense, but like our business associations, of people on our team, where I buy my groceries, like all of these different things. And it's like reconfiguring, but we're all moving forward. I'm aligning myself to all the things and people, and we're moving in this direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I missed two other things on July 17th, which are really important. Mercury in Leo is also creating a square to Jupiter in Taurus, which is a sharp tongue as well. Be mindful. Jupiter in Taurus, again, really beautiful energy, but it can also exaggerate.
Mm.
Mercury square Jupiter, over promising, under delivering, especially in a sign like Leo. Like, oh, I promise you, the stars, the sun, everything. Um, it can just be a little over the top. Being mindful of that. And on the 17th, on the day of the full moon, I'm sorry, of the new moon, the nodes switch signs.
Mm.
The nodes switch signs. The north node leaves Taurus to enter Aries, and the south node leaves Scorpio to enter Libra. I do want to make a bit of a note here. Different astrologers measure the nodal change in different ways. Without getting too much into it, for some astrologers, they're saying that the nodes are going to switch July 12th. And then there are those of us that are saying that the nodes are going to switch July 17th, 5 days apart. The energy is there. It's active. It's almost the same thing. I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
Now,
Well, those energies too. I mean, even though we're saying, when we're being really specific and saying
right.
this day,
Mhm.
those energies bleed out, and some of them linger for a very long time after they've, arisen, so to speak.
Absolutely. There's something about this energy, especially of, the chosen family, shifted in dynamics in relationships, who we're collaborating with, our business partnerships. This doesn't feel like anything new. Pluto in Capricorn is retrograde. Neptune in Pisces is retrograde. What this feels like is a final acceptance of, I can't be with these people anymore. So what this can look like is, especially with those nodes, the switching of the nodes into Aries and Libra, which is the axes of relationship in the zodiac. It can manifest in example. I've had a friend, and I feel like that friend is not always, whenever I share good news with her, she kind of, I don't feel that she's genuinely happy for me, but I've let it go for many years. These nodal changes, with Venus doing everything it's going to do, is the final acceptance of, I don't need to have friendships like that in my life. That's what's going to begin unfolding July through September. So really important. Which reminds me of the card you shared of no BS and seeing things clearly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the fact that they are a king, a queen, and a knight, but they're all of different suits.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I'm going to take, this will be my family. This will be my,
Mm-hmm.
my circle.
Right. Yeah.
You're in or you're out.
Yeah.
And it's been that theme all the way through. Does this align with my passion?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, great, it's in. Does this align with my passion? No, out. Does this person support what I do, or are they secretly, undermining me?
Right.
Or not so secretly? Out.
Right. Right.
And I think too, the fact that there's this other energy, this fortuitous energy that's there, that you may not know that somebody is secretly undermining you, but the universe will just extract them from your life.
Right.
That is also going on, which is great.
Such a great point, because the nodes are that energy in the zodiac that don't care how much in denial you are of someone, or how unaware you genuinely are.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the nodes and eclipses. And by the way, the North Node in Aries, South Node in Libra will remain there for the next 19 months. Okay. So for the next year and a half, it's going to be all about a shift in relationship and relationship dynamics.
Yeah.
So it's about getting very honest with yourself about the relationships in your life, and also trusting. And here's the thing, also trusting that if you are someone who is becoming much more aware of connecting with yourself, connecting with things that you love, connecting with your passions, and really becoming more focused on the things that actually matter to you, inevitably certain people will fall by the wayside, and those that are meant to support you on that path, on your path, on your journey, on your passions will come. Because that's also another thing
Mhm.
with these nodes, with these eclipses over the next couple of years. As soon as someone leaves, someone else comes in. And if you are aligned with what matters to you, the people that come in are coming in to support you. But if you continue being distracted, if you continue entertaining certain relationship dynamics that don't serve you and haven't served you, and you know that, more lessons are just going to keep coming in. So this whole question about, like, why do I keep attracting the same kind of people? Well, it's how much are you continuing to entertain relationship dynamics that don't serve you?
The
And
same.
over the next 19 months, it's going to be so brutally clear, because the North Node in Aries is so can be so harsh. The South Node in Libra is going to take away any excuse.
Well, it's the, I'm glad you mentioned the next 19 months, because if you're somebody who follows things like soulmate cycles or twin flames or any of those kind of things, this is that moment where you may be going, wow, the light bulb just went off for them, but guess what, I'm not interested anymore.
Right.
That level of awareness, that the bullshit, that pardon me, the BS that the other party might have told themselves
Right.
no longer holds water. Like,
Mhm.
that's that energy of like, oh, this is why we can't be together. That doesn't make any sense anymore.
Mhm.
The other party might be like, well, I'm glad you figured it out. I've moved on. Thanks.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
that's a whole relationship dynamic. And it does tend to happen in cycles, that whole runner chaser, masculine, feminine, whatever, that whole thing. It's
Mhm.
playing out in a really interesting way
Yeah.
for the next 19 months.
Right. This is really important here, because this is where we understand how certain cycles prepare us for the next cycle, and so on and so forth. Think about what are some of the greatest lessons around your sense of self-worth, value, who and what deserve your time, energy, and attention. Around those topics, what have you learned from January 2022 to July 2023? The clarification of that and the boundaries that you've had to create around that, because there have been many invitations and prompts from the universe to do that. The point of that was so that now that we're beginning the next 19 months around relationships, where the South Node is in Libra and the lower expression of Libra is I do everything for you and leave myself behind. No, the lessons learned from January 2022, July 2023 are meant to serve you and help you as to how you're going to navigate relationships over the next 19 months. I say this because what you'll probably begin hearing a lot is this is the next 19 months where and especially with Venus and Leo, where you
Mhm.
can find your soulmate and attract the partner for your life and all of those things. Not if you're not bringing the lessons that the last cycle left you with. And what we're going to be called on a lot is the lower expression of Libra. Overgiving, no boundaries, a tit for tat mentality. Well, if I'm nice, then they're going to love me and they're going to choose me. Like this performative energy in relationships so that you're picked and you're chosen, when the North Node in Aries is saying you don't have to be picked by anyone. You could just be you. So this is important to keep in mind. Yeah. Okay, so that takes us to July 20th. The Sun in Cancer, trine Neptune, retrograde in Pisces, and on the same day, Mars in Virgo opposing Saturn in Pisces. This is interesting energy. Sun in Cancer, trine Neptune in Pisces. Also another great day to not talk to anyone. Connect with yourself. Great R&R day, great mental health day. Sun in Cancer, trine Neptune in Pisces, also great day for creativity, especially if you're an artist or creative of any sort. But this is also, especially if you're someone who works with a facilitator, coming to a sense of self-forgiveness, because Mars in Virgo in opposition to Saturn can manifest in a lot of harsh criticism, in ridiculous standards and expectations of the self that may not even come from yourself. They're internalized expectations and standards that you're not meeting because they're not yours to begin with. So it's an interesting day of introspection, I feel.
Yes, I have very interesting and odd cards, but they go exactly with what you've just said. So we have a minor and we have a major, and we have an 8 and we have a 5, and together those are 13, which is a 4, which is balance. Like it balances itself out in these weird, extremes. So we have the 5 of cups, 5 of water in this one. And, she's coming out of the shell. She's almost got this woe is me thing going on. I mean, she still looks spectacular, but she's completely unaware of it. And then by contrast, we have the strength card, which is oddly, a very Leo card. And it's number 8. We have some sun coming through. We have this, it's usually a beautiful woman with this lion, ferocious lion, and they're getting along just fine. And it's being able to harness that inner strength, and when do you need strength? Not when everything is easy and fine and comfortable, but when there's something challenging or fearful or new or unknown, right? So this feeling of getting pulled back into the old whatever. Why? I've just had all of these realizations, and I realize now all of my shortcomings, on top of all the wonderful things that have happened. What about all the negative things that have happened?
Right.
Then it takes this like strength to go, okay, I actually accept all my mistakes, all the pitfalls, all my shortcomings. Some of them are really embarrassing now that I'm self-aware, and that's how they kind of play together. The colors aren't even aligned. Like it's and they're facing each other. They were like this, so it's facing that reality, being bold enough to embrace it, not be pulled back. You talked about criticism, and it can be self-criticism as well, of the, oh, I'm not living up to, I'm, that old program that's running, whoever implanted it there, your grade 2 teacher.
Right.
Whatever. It's that strength to go, yes, all of these things are a part of me. I'm moving forward anyway.
Right. On July 21st, we have the Sun in Cancer create an opposition to Pluto retrograde in Capricorn. This feels, there's nothing specific about this day that hasn't already been building up since the new moon in Cancer of July 17th. So the understanding of, again, what used to bring me a sense of safety and home, the people that used to bring me a sense of safety and home no longer do. And the acceptance of that with Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, and because here's the thing with this energy as well, right? It's not like once we realize something, then the next day we just stop doing it.
Yeah.
There's a process that then takes place, of ending a tie. And for some people, it takes a really long time. For others, not so much. This window of time, again, lasts till January of 2024. There's a lot happening in between that will assist in cutting of those ties. Whether or not you choose to answer those prompts is up to you, but you will be presented with prompts to cut the cord with certain things. And the universe whispers before it turns our life upside down. And so totally up to you.
I realize this is the only card that we have duplicates of in this reading. So it is the King of Water, which is the King of Cups. So
Yeah, interesting.
We have the King of Cups over
Yeah.
there, which is Cancer.
Right.
Very Neptunian figure here. And
Yeah.
he's connected to home and emotions. And he's a father figure. And it's a multifaceted, emotional, creative, nurturing homebody. Basically, that's the energy of that day. So it's at the maximum. It's a king. So it's like, what is your maximum desire or wish or aspiration within that? What feeds and nurtures you? What does your family look like? What does your partner look like? And I say family just like as your, the people in your immediate circle, the people who you
Right.
rely on, who are there for you, people who should be there for you that aren't, all of that kind of thing. So that's who we have there.
Yeah.
Twice.
That's interesting. That's interesting because it came up both times with such strong Cancer energy.
Yeah.
So there's something about that that's so poignant this month. July 22nd, the sun moves into the sign of Leo. Venus begins its retrograde cycle at 28 degrees Leo. It's going to retrograde all the way back to 12 degrees, and it's going to remain retrograde till September 3rd. Every Venus retrograde cycle is 40 days. And in addition, we have Mercury and Leo creating a trine to Chiron and Aries. So the Leo season is usually the brightest season of the year. We are expressing ourselves full effect. We're out in the sun, having fun, connecting, and we're still going to do that. Venus retrograde in Leo throughout the entire Leo season is, I feel, coming more from the space of the observer and observing yourself in connection to the same people. This connection doesn't feel the same. Now I don't care to listen to the same conversation again and again and again. Really interesting. You're going to observe yourself in relationship to others. And Mercury and Leo trying Chiron and Aries. To me, this feels like not being shy about expressing it. You'll observe yourself. I don't know that everyone's going to necessarily be so vocal about it, but I think that a lot of people are. And especially if you tend to be someone who's, more direct, no filter, you're going to say a lot of things and you're going to tell people like, you've been talking about this thing for the last 6 months. Really? Sorry, I'm just not the person anymore. You're not doing anything about it and I don't care to listen to it anymore. So really interesting.
So you're going to like this card. You mentioned the observer, being the observer. in this deck, it is very interesting.
Ah,
So
oh
this is
wow.
the Six of Cups. And this is me looking at me in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just funny because in this deck, this is the way it's depicted,
Mm-hmm.
just part of the landscape, getting, this, it's often, a feeling of nostalgia, people from the past showing up again, just sort of revisiting things from the past, looking at the family dynamics, friends and relationships, all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Can even be past lives too.
Mm-hmm.
A
Mm-hmm.
lot of what we're doing might feel like a past life because the things that we did in this life are so different from what we're doing now and what we're going to be doing, that they really might feel like they're a completely different life.
Such a good point. Yeah.
Okay, so we've got 6 progressing into a 7.
Hmm.
So again, it's a progression. We are on the right path. We are moving forward. We're taking these very incremental steps
Yeah.
to go forward. But I say incremental, but there's nothing being rushed here, but it's also not slow energy. It's fortunate, progressive movement.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got the 7 of Cups here. Usually it's about options. Let me get the right angle there so the glare is gone. There we go.
Yeah.
Um, she's up in the clouds and she has options and she's actually making stars. So, talk about, she's putting her wand and go, oh, one would look nice there, one would look nice there, one would look
Right.
nice there. And everybody down below can go, ooh and ah. But these are the options. These are the choices, the options. I don't feel like these two energies, like there's anything confusing about it. Um, you know, the 7 of Cups can often feel like overwhelming, like I have too many options, I don't know what to pick. This is like, I have options. Here they are, sparkling away. I did
Mhm.
that. I created these options. So I think it's a nice, that progressive energy of I am taking the steps, I am showing up every day, and the universe is rewarding me with like a clearer path. Hey, you are removing some of the junk. Let me help you out. Let me lighten the load. You
Right.
learn that lesson. You get a
Right.
gold star.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's important to note that with the node switching signs into Aries and Libra, the relationship axis of the zodiac, and Venus going retrograde within a few days, the possibility of people from your past, especially past lovers, coming into your life during this Venus retrograde, very likely, very, very likely. The possibility to meet soulmates, karma mates, those types of mates, um, very likely.
Mhm.
Now, because the Capricorn in me has to come in. You have to be so mindful that of who you're allowing into your life. Because what I can see happening is so much content being created out there of love of your life, twin flame. Look, we have to remember that if there are lessons that we need to learn about love, the universe will bring them to us. And that doesn't mean forever. That doesn't mean forever. It doesn't mean finally. You have to hold one of the things that's going to happen with the South Node transiting Libra is that a lot of like the fantasy fairy tale-y way of doing relationships is going to shift, and it needs to, because what this is telling us is that we need to hold relationships more as mirrors understanding that we are in relationship with other people because they're here to teach us something, not because they belong to us.
Mhm.
So please be mindful of that, because I feel that with Venus retrograde in Leo through September, hot summer, like summer loves, summer adventures, like a lot of fun, but also great lessons. Venus not only will be retrograde, but it's also going to be the ruler of the South Node. And the South Node, by definition, is a point of letting go and purging what no longer serves in Libra relationships. How you used to attract someone, no longer going to work. How you used to, or what used to attract you about someone, no longer going to be it. Performing to be chosen, no longer going to work. So being very mindful of that, because the nodes and Venus retrograde is a karmic portal opening, but it has more to do with what the soul is here to evolve and learn, and what the ego wants and thinks it needs.
Yeah, there's the soul family
Mhm.
comes together when you're
Mhm.
at very crucial, critical times in your life. It's
Right.
not just for you, it's also for the other people in the soul family.
Yep.
If you are still attracting, as you mentioned before, if you're still attracting the same type of person under this, under this tent
Mhm.
of, oh, whatever, if you
Mhm.
didn't do that work, that person, you're going to come up and go, aha,
Mhm.
aha, you see? But that's from the place of not being aware
Right.
in the first place. So, eh, for the first 2 weeks of July, if you haven't learned those lessons, just be extra cautious.
Yeah.
Be extra cautious.
Yeah. July 23rd, Mercury in Leo squares Uranus in Taurus. Another potential energy of putting your foot in your mouth. Just be mindful of that, but also another great aspect of creativity. But this is like unexpected creativity. Like you're in the shower, you get a download, and you're like, oh my God, I have to write this down before I forget. And you get out of the shower with wet hair and you write it down, or you voice note it, that kind of thing. Mercury and Leo square Uranus and Taurus. Um, expect unexpected news. Um, if you have plans with someone, last minute changes, um, a lack of communication. So it's abrupt energy when it comes to thought pattern, communication pattern, and being okay with that, because it's just how the energy works. I think collectively it can be a day in which we hear those like bombs on the news where we're like, what? Like something outrageous like that, especially in the sign of Leo, which again can tend to exaggerate. It's a fire sign. On that same day, Mercury in Aries begins to retrograde till December 26th. Chiron retrograde is really interesting energy. I think that it's one of those energies that we don't feel
Mm.
retrograde, like Mercury or even Saturn, for instance. I think we do feel like a Saturn retrograde, a molasses slowing down of things with Saturn retrograde. Chiron is more of, you'll understand what the lesson was in hindsight. Chiron in Aries represents the wound of choosing the self. And so there is this introspection, there's this going within of that wound, holding it differently, perhaps having some reactive moments that serve as the contrast or the lesson of, oh, this is how I'm defensive. This is how I choose not to look at something so that I don't have to change it. So it's a long transit. It's not unimportant, but it isn't something that's going to make sense right away.
Hmm. The reason I was chuckling the whole time because you just will not believe the cards that I have. And, if anybody is just tuning in for the first time, I do not select the cards. I don't look at the aspect and then find the appropriate card.
No.
The cards come out like they do in any tarot reading. They just happen to always align. So I'm going to reverse engineer this one a little bit. They're both major arcana cards.
Okay.
So they are big, important things. When you talk about Chiron, it's always something profound after the fact.
Right.
Like you said, like you don't feel it at the time. It is somewhat of an erratic, moving thing out there. It's kind of like, what was that? I got a hint of perfume. You know, it's not you. It's so intangible, but then after you can go, whoa, that was, oh, that's what that was. So, are you ready for these two cards? The Tower
Oh, wow.
and the World.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So, okay, let's look at this first. So we have in this deck, it's just a spectacular image. She's holding that tower. She's embracing the tower. She's not trying to prevent it from falling. She's embracing it as it crumbles.
Yeah.
She's embracing the catastrophe or the epiphany or the surprise. And it definitely feels more like a surprise than a catastrophe, with the fact that we have the world next to it. So the world is, sometimes it's depicted as the universe. So she is in the stars, she is holding the earth, she is made up of it, you know, all that interconnectedness, whatever. Not whatever, but you know, yada yada, interconnectedness, yada yada yada, whatever. Those two things together, these are like far-reaching things. It is the expect the unexpected. No matter how much you tell that to somebody, they're waiting for it, and then it hits, and they're like, "Oh, I never expected that." You know, because that's what the universe is giving you, and it's the world giving it to you. So it's like huge opportunity, huge transformation, but it's not transformation that we've been used to. This is like something different. We're used to transforming. Something ends and something begins. I want to think and I want to plan and I'm going to this and I meet this person and it starts up. Whatever you think it is, it's not that. And it's good. And things will be taken away and something else will be in its place. Like, yeah, that's what that's about. And it's just, I'm sitting there and you're talking and I'm chuckling out loud because I'm looking at these two images and I couldn't hide it.
Yeah. It's a day that I think would normally, or the energy of that day can normally just be kind of overlooked. It can be overlooked because it can begin in a way that we don't understand the domino effect in the long run, is my point. And those two cards, especially being major arcana, really signify that.
Yeah.
So July 27th, we have a really beautiful connection of Mercury and Venus retrograde, both in conjunction in the sign of Leo. Another aspect of someone from the past coming back and communicating. And in the sign of Leo, really being excited to see one another. Both people being in different places where if things ended not in the best way, being willing to come together and say, the past is in the past. In Leo, also minding the expectation that just because someone from the past reaches out doesn't mean that they want to get back together. It's just that all of this retrograde energy and the node switching signs, we have to remember that this energy has happened to all of us, right? So everyone, whether intentionally or not, has gone inward. You know, their outlook on life has changed, even if they're resistant to it. So I feel that there are a lot of conversations that are going to be had that can serve as a form of closure. Some people really need those conversations to serve as closure. Others not so much. Some people really feel they need that. Venus, Mercury conjunction in Leo can serve as that. Let's say that it's not someone from your past. Let's say that this is current relationships. This is actually really beautiful. This is, I don't know, reconnecting with your partner. And, we've been a little distant lately. What's going on? What's going on? Are you okay? Are we just busy? How do we reignite that passion again? So beautiful aspect, really beautiful aspect.
It is no doubt we get the 10 of Cups.
Oh my gosh.
Is that happily ever after? And it doesn't have to be in that way, but it's like the resolving of differences. It's
Right.
the maximum love,
Yeah.
the love card, so if it is a romantic relationship, it's at the max.
Mm-hmm.
Can't get more than 10.
Mm-hmm.
If it's some other situation, it's filled with kindness and nurturing and
Yeah.
acceptance and gratitude and balance and
Mm-hmm.
all of those things. And if it's somebody from the past, it's probably understanding, understanding and compassion and, how many times you say, like, why can't somebody just be nice? Like, why can't they just be nice and do the right thing? Well, there it is.
Right. Right. That's a beautiful card with that Buddha.
Yeah, it's
That's really
again
beautiful.
very different.
Yeah.
Very, very different than usually how it's depicted.
But that joy, that innocent joy, which Leo is actually represents in the zodiac, that's a beautiful card.
Like rising above all the
Yes.
pettiness and get to that place of real love, real joy, real bliss, compassion, all of that stuff. When you're in that space, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Finally, get to the end of the month, which we'll end with July 28th. And we have Mercury and Leo creating a trine to the North Node in Aries, a sextile to the South Node in Libra. And then later that day, Mercury entering Virgo and remaining there till October 4th, because Mercury is going to retrograde in Virgo from August 15th to September 3rd. So let me break this down, because Mercury in Leo has been so much about expression of the heart, really loving words, really kind words. The connection to the nodes, especially with that Mercury-Venus conjunction the previous day, and the card that Susheela showed, moving past the pettiness and really having this different understanding of love and relationships. Mercury making its last aspect as Mercury in Leo to the nodes is this understanding, or the beginning of this understanding of relationships don't work in the way that I thought. Love is not what I thought it was. Love is not the fairy tales. Love is love. Love is meeting different souls throughout this lifetime and us teaching each other different things. It's the mind, which is very human, coming to this very soulful understanding, the nodes of, oh, relationships are not what I thought they were. There's something a lot more profound. Now, Mercury and Leo having that last connection as Mercury and Leo, and then moving into Mercury and Virgo. Virgo being the sign, yes, of looking at the details, of taking inventory in some way. Mercury in Virgo is very task-oriented, is very productive. But because Mercury is going to go retrograde in August, and of course we'll talk about it in our August forecast, at the same time that Venus is retrograde in Leo, which has to do with relationships, there's been a switch in nodes to the relationship axis. This is deep introspection of how have I really been responsible for the way that my relationships have turned out? I think that has been a theme, and I think that a lot of people have done a lot of work around what is my, responsibility in this. we haven't had this astrological climate in a long, long, long time. So Mercury in Virgo is about what is my responsibility? Also, how can I be of service to the world? But that retrograde cycle will keep you from continuing to lie to yourself. There's something very fantasy-like about Libra, South Node in Libra, Venus in Leo, romance and fairy tales again. And Mercury in Virgo is saying, that's what has gotten me in trouble.
Yeah.
Why do I want to connect? And that being something that goes through September.
Well, okay, so we had that 10 of Cups. We
Mhm.
move into these two cards like this in this configuration. Okay, so we have the Queen of Pentacles and we have the Six of Pentacles, both very positive cards.
Mhm.
He's the farthest thing from, you know, Disney happily ever after. She
Mhm.
is a self-sufficient, solitary queen. And that's not to say the romance shows up and you go, no, I don't need this. I'm
Right.
just going to be alone. You
Right.
may, but that's not necessarily the message here. It's like knowing who you are within a relationship. This is about reciprocity, the Six of
Mhm.
Pentacles. You
Mhm.
don't always get 50-50. I mean, I
Right.
shouldn't say you don't always get, you never get 50-50. You
Right.
never do. It doesn't work that way. We get this reciprocity, through a variety of exchanges
Mhm.
during a day, during a lifetime, during, a variety of different encounters. So this queen with the Six of Pentacles is like, yes, I am self-sufficient. I am responsible for what I participate in. I am responsible for paying my bills. I'm responsible for my own advancement, my own feelings, my own thoughts, my own actions. And I can participate in a kind, loving relationship, or I can participate in the nonsense that I used to participate in before. This queen is very much the no nonsense.
Yeah.
She's not going to go back there.
Yeah.
The Six of Pentacles is understanding your worth, not participating in things, but also not punishing somebody for not having these traits.
Mhm.
That's your list. That's not their list.
Mhm.
They're responsible for themselves. They never thought it was important to do such and such. They're way more interested in this other thing that you have no interest in. So that reciprocity works its way through somehow, some way. And
Yeah.
there's also remembering, there's that other side of it. Are you going to enter into a relationship really that's long term where there is no reciprocity? Like you need, we say equal give and take, but let's say balanced give
Right.
and take,
Right.
because it will go like this
Right.
with things across the board. So yeah, I think we end the month on a pretty good note.
I think so too. I love that no nonsense or the nonsense. Uh Mercury in Virgo is very, especially retrograde, is going to be very no nonsense. It's remember, Virgo energy doesn't miss a beat. It sees everything.
Yeah.
It notices everything. And so you're going to notice everything. You're going to see everything. What you'll want to be mindful of is, not being harsh. Mercury in Virgo can be a very harsh critic, and that's not the point.
No.
It's just about a different level of honesty, especially when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It looks like a fun month,
I think so.
and watch out for the harshness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So really, really great month. Thank you for another awesome read, Susheela, and we hope that you enjoy it. To help us out, please subscribe, like, and share this with other people. I think July. I mean, I think every month has something to give us, but it really
Mhm.
helps people to give greater context to understand, oh, this is why this is happening. So share with your friends if you think that this can be of service to them.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.